This particular Weeb ship, like the last one we covered, is a copy-paste of an existing tech tree ship. Here we have the Tier VII Premium BA Hovercraft, a Russian battleship based on the Vladivostok. And even though it's called the Hovercraft, you'll notice it is in fact floating on the water. But the camo has some little turbine engines on all of the turrets, so maybe that's where it gets the Hovercraft name. I'll cover the stats and all that stuff, but before we really get started, maybe we should refer to the Wargaming article on what this ship is all about. Because when I first read it, it led me to believe something that I don't think is actually true. So, the BA hovercraft, compared to the Vladivostok, has a reduced reload time, 31 seconds instead of 33. Turrets traversed a little bit faster, at 5 degrees per second instead of 4. Main battery range reduced to 16 km even from 16.9. Secondary battery firing range increased from 5 to 6.5 km base. Secondary battery dispersion reduced by 32.5%. Fire setting chance on the 152 millimeter secondaries increased to 15% from 12, and on the 100 millimeters, fire chance increased from 8 to 8% from 6. And then there were some nerfs to the damage that the secondaries do by a couple hundred points of damage, a little bit of a speed buff to go at 31 knots base, rudder shift improvement to 12.3 seconds, slight concealment nerf by 0.2 km, HP nerf from 73,600 to 67,500, and then the enhanced secondary targeting consumable was moved from slot 3 to slot 4. So, if you read all that, you might think to yourself, as I did initially, this is a Vladivostok, but it's got all these improved secondary parameters. So therefore, you want to build it for secondaries. And that is what I tried to do for the first couple of battles in the ship. However, with the secondary mod and the porcupine skill, and then Hipper as one inspiration, I only got the secondaries to range out to mid 9 kilometer range. Now, if you added somebody like Haruna or the Pan American Battleship Commander, I think, gives you a secondary range as well. If you added either of them, I think you could get these secondaries ranging out a little past 10 km, but compared to other secondary ships at Tier 7, that's not a lot of range. And then all the 152 millimeter secondaries, you can see them from this angle. They're mostly on the back of the ship, and then the smaller 100 millimeter ones are sort of on the front. They have decent firing angles when you're, giving broadside, but if you're facing straight forward, they don't tend to fire a lot. And here, we're playing a new map, of course, so we come around the corner face first into an Indianapolis, another cruiser out there, Rochester, I think, and then a Bismarck. Not really expecting that. This is, of course, the new map Loop, and maybe not a lot of people have played it yet. I've only played it a handful of times. There's no DDs in this match, so we were kind of blind in knowing what might be around this corner. But we do get a close quarters expert with the secondaries, and what I found with BA Hovercraft is that if you're gonna play it, you might as well build for the main battery guns and just treat it like a normal battleship, and then use the enhanced secondary base range to get some secondary firepower on ships at close brawling range like this. It'll amplify the damage a little bit. As you can see, we've lit 3 fires with the secondary so far in this sequence. So when they do hit, it's not like they're useless or anything. And also this camo, if you notice, the smoke puffs from the secondary guns are like this blue color. And then if you fire the main battery guns, the smoke puffs are kind of like a purplish or pink color. It's kind of an interesting twist to the aesthetics here. But in any case, this is going to be wrapping up here soon, this first clip. I just wanted to show it to you because it does demonstrate the secondary firepower in close brawling range. And of course, the Vladivostok and this thing, both of them can be brawling ships if you get into close range like that. However, they do have exposed citadels, so you certainly don't want to be giving broadside. My team would go on to win that battle. This next battle is more of a full length match. Unfortunately, we're not going to win it, and it's not a very high damage match either, but I think it's rather entertaining once we get toward the end and you see how much HP I'm left with. Despite the HP nerf on the BA Hovercraft compared to Vladivostok, it does essentially have the exact same armor scheme, which is very robust. It's got 32mm plating on the bow, a little bit of an icebreaker coming up from the center of the ship, but it doesn't fully wrap around the bow, so you could be overmatched by the likes of Musashi, for example. The rest of the armor scheme, though, the side plating is very good. It's 50mm on the deck and the upper belt, and of course the armor belt itself is 200mm. So that armor thickness, particularly in the center of the ship, can be shattering quite a bit of HE, preventing you from taking pens there. Of course, you'll still get lit on fire, but that helps mitigate the damage, and you can bounce pretty much any battleship AP that's going to be sent your way. Like the rest of the Russian battleships, this thing does have the gimmick repair parties, the short cooldown ones where you get a limited count. With one of the commander skills on the build, we've got 5 repair parties, although you only get 3 base. Sorry, 5 damage control parties. You only get 3 base. They reload in 35 seconds, and then we've got a conventional battleship repair party, as far as I can tell. It restores 357 HP per second for a duration of 26 seconds. In the third consumable slot, you get a choice between Observation Seaplane for better dispersion, or the Fighter Plane if you want to put Arthas on the build, which I suppose you could. And then the Enhanced Secondary Targeting consumable in the fourth slot in case you do want to fully build 4 secondaries, which certainly you can. I just think it's better to build this ship for main guns, to be honest with you. Now, for the commander build, I'll put that up on the screen. It's one of these weeb commanders, one that's very scantily dressed. Hopefully YouTube doesn't have any problems with me showing this, but she's sort of like a hybrid commander between the typical archetype of the accuracy range battleship commander, like for example, Galler on the Russian line, and also she's got the survivability skills like the brawling battleship commander, Kedrov. So for that reason, because you can combine Flammable Cannoneer and Master Mechanic together, I think it's not a bad commander to be using. And then the base trait is sort of like Kedrov's base trait. His reduces the 180-degree turn time on the main battery guns, which is useful for brawling battleships with slow turret traverse. This Wakamo lady, she also reduces the gun turret traverse speed by, at this rank, rank 12, legendary 2, by 0.48 degrees per second, and also reduces the chance that your battleship will be lit on fire by 4.8%. Then we've got the Fight Fire with Fire skill, which helps mitigate some fire damage. As for the rest of the stats, as we play this flank here on this map and get some fairly decent results, we already know about the HP, 67,500. Torpedo damage reduction is pretty bad at 21%. You certainly don't want to be hit by many of them. The guns are Vladivostok guns. They're 9 406mm guns in 3 triple turrets, 2 on the front, 1 on the back. With this build, using Flammable Cannoneer and also, by the way, the Epic Battle Propensity or Battle Booster flag, we've got a 17.8 kilometer main battery range, which does feel kind of short, to be honest with you. The reload time is decent at 27.9 seconds, a little bit faster than Vladivostok. Very fast, 28.9 second turret traverse. HE shell damage, 5,850. 41% fire chance, so pretty good HE parameters, actually. And then the AP maximum damage, 13,100. Of course, you could buff that, I suppose, by using Arthas as an inspiration, gyrating drill bits, potentially. There's a couple ways you could increase that, but I'd say it's decent damage. Then for the AA defenses, I don't know. I haven't run into all that many CVs. Got an aggregate rating of 74. Maneuverability, 31.9 knots, 950-meter turning circle, 12.3 second rudder shift. It feels very maneuverable, even with that large turning circle. Kind of like it, to be honest with you. And then the concealment, well, we've got one concealment inspiration in the form of Kondo on the commander build. Then we've got the concealment mod, so we have 12.5 km detect by sea. Otherwise, if you don't build for concealment, it is going to be slightly worse than Vladivostok. So essentially, what we've got here is a copy-paste of an existing tech tree ship, much like B.A. Utnapishtim's thing, but with some minor differences, namely the secondary firepower on this vessel compared to the Vladivostok has been improved. Although I don't really think, again, there's any use in building it for secondaries. Tried it once, well, tried it more than once, didn't have a great time with it. If you look at it, the 100 millimeter secondaries are more on the front of the ship, but they're all in a line next to the superstructure between sort of the midship and the turrets. There's no super firing ones, so if you're firing straight forward, only a few of them can actually get on target, and then all the big ones are in the back. Now, if you're in a kiting angle, the secondaries are fairly decent. I think most of them can get on target. And, they do some penetration. They're fairly accurate. They start quite a bit of fires. They can be useful. But I think just building for these main battery guns is the most useful thing. And the guns themselves, I mean, they are fairly accurate, particularly at close ranges. Just ask the Michelangelo over there. I think initially when we shot at him, a lot of our shells went into the water, but, that's down to RNG and the way this game works. You're not going to be getting pinpoint salvos every single time. The accuracy, more or less, reminds me of Vladivostok. I don't think there has been too much changed there, and I think this ship does have the typical Soviet gimmick of the dispersion is much better at closer ranges and then falls off at longer ranges. Certainly, I've taken some shots where the dispersion has looked pretty bad at maximum range. So, basically, this thing is the Vladivostok with a fancy camo and some ability to spec for secondaries. The cost of it, like the rest of the BA ships in this update, if you navigate to the store and go to Blue Archive, there's a few different ways you can get the ship. Number one, you can buy crates for 1,000 doubloons each, and you can sort of gamble on the chance that this ship or some other BA ship will come out of those crates. I don't think that's a great proposition. You'll probably end up getting something you don't necessarily want if you go that route. So alternatively, you can buy it in a bundle, and it comes with the commander. It's both the ship, the Wakamo commander, and then a unique flag. The cost is 20,250 doubloons. I just don't see paying that amount of money for a copy-paste tech tree that, if anything, is sort of a side grade from the Vladivostok. I suppose if you're really interested in secondary ships and you want a Russian secondary brawler, well, you could go with this and you'll get a decent time out of it, I suppose, but 20,000 doubloons for a Tier 7 premium, even if it does come with a unique commander that you could use on other Russian battleships, I just don't see it. And again, I think I said this on the B.A. Utnapishtim video, if you were in the market to buy one of these BA ships and a BA commander, then the ones from the first wave are also available in the store. There's a bundle called Dreamy Warrior, and that bundle contains BA Montana and Takanashi Hoshino. As soon as I get a decent game in BA Montana again, I think I'll make a video covering that once more, because I think out of all of them, we've got BA Montana, BA Tirpitz, BA Hovercraft, BA Bina, which we haven't covered yet. That is Caracciolo at Tier 6, basically, except it fires sap from its main battery guns instead of its secondaries, and it has a main battery reload booster. And then, of course, Utnapishtim's ship. Out of all of those, Utnapishtim, copy-paste of Brest, BA Bina, copy-paste of Caracciolo, Hovercraft, copy-paste of Vladivostok. Are you noticing a trend here? BA Tirpitz, copy-paste of Tirpitz, but with some different parameters. And then finally, BA Montana. Once again, copy-paste of an existing ship. All of them are. And if you're going to go with any of them, I think it's got to be BA Montana, just because, number one, Takanashi Hoshino, out of all of them, in my opinion, is probably the best commander. She's going to do good things for practically any American battleship you want to put her on. And then the BA Montana itself is rather cracked. Sorry for the timer or the alarm going off. If you could hear that on my phone, that was bad. Anyway, the BA Montana is cracked compared to the regular Montana. It's got a reduced main battery reload time. I think it's like 24 seconds or something like that. But you can build for it and reduce it to 21 seconds. And then I believe the Takanashi Hoshino commander has a special skill that you will find on certain other commanders called the Dance with Death skill. And what it does is it reduces main battery and secondary battery reload time, as well as gun turret traverse speed per 1% HP lost. So as you lose HP with that commander on the helm, your reload gets even better. And on BA Montana, if you build it for reload using the reload mod instead of the unique American Artillery Plotting Room mod, well, then you go from, I believe it's 21.9 seconds with the reload mod and Takanashi Hoshino using the Megalomania skill. Then as you take damage, the Dance with Death kicks in, and your reload could get under 20 seconds on your 12 16-inch guns on the BA Montana. For that reason, out of all these BA ships, I think Montana would be the one to go with. However, the cost of BA Montana is considerably more than this particular ship. The cost here is, again, 20,250 doubloons, whereas BA Montana, being 2 tiers higher at legendary tier compared to tier 7, is 33,750. So basically, it is going to be a lot of money either way, no matter what way you go on this. And, well, with that amount of money, I just don't see buying any of these copy-paste ships unless they are completely cracked, like the BA Montana is. As for this battle, it is winding down here. We are going to lose, but you can sort of see the tankiness of the BA Hovercraft in spite of the HP nerf compared to Vladivostok. At this point, the flank that we spawned on is clear, thanks in part to our help. We sunk 3 ships there. However, we've been reduced to 51 HP, and we've got this enemy destroyer sitting in the smoke screen here, right in front of us where we've gone dark. So there's a slight chance here that we could turn the tide of this battle. If we're able to push into this smoke screen without being spotted, which it looks likely. The enemy battleships on the other side of the island, he won't have line of sight on us. The CV could send his planes over here and sink us instantly, but he's not going to spot us for the Fletcher. So if we get close enough and this guy's smoke screen runs out, we've got our guns pointed the right way, maybe we can sink him. Unless he launches widespread torpedoes at us and one of them catches us on the side, takes away our remaining 51 HP, and we go down. What a shame. The Fletcher, if I remember correctly, gets spotted shortly after this, but this D7P is not able to sink him, so unfortunately the battle ends with our tragic defeat. But there's your look at the BA Hovercraft. Again, I don't think I'd recommend this thing. There are just better choices in the Blue Archive event, namely BA Montana, which I think honestly is the only one at this point I would recommend. And I don't even know that I would recommend that just because it's so expensive. Hope you enjoyed the video. If so, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.